With the popularity of social media and new technology, people seem to be more connected than ever. Can we use these connections to take a more holistic approach to solving the world's biggest problems? I'm Mike Walter in Los Angeles. Let's take it full frame. Dr. Deepak Chopra is a world-renowned author and expert on alternative medicine and spirituality. His more than 80 books have been translated into 35 languages, and his fans range from young students in India to celebrity icons like Madonna and Oprah Winfrey. He also devotes a great deal of his time and energy to the work of the Chopra Foundation, an organization dedicated to improving health and education standards worldwide and promoting world peace through initiatives aimed at the next generation of world leaders. Dr. Deepak Chopra joins me now to share his thoughts on alternative approaches to many of the world's biggest problems and the work of his foundation. Welcome to Full Frame.
Thanks, Mike.
So the fact of the matter is, it's translated in all these languages. So let me start by saying, this Martian lands in my front yard, comes to a dinner party, you're there, because that's the only person who wouldn't know who you are. How would you, and he says, who are you, what do you do? How would you explain yourself?
I would say to define yourself is to limit yourself, so I've always avoided not defining myself. If somebody really asks me, what do you do? I say, I play. I mean, I have fun. Who I am is who you are at the deepest level. We're a potential for possibilities, infinite possibilities.
I was mentioning to you, I got online last night and listened to a few of your tapes just to prepare for today, and one of them, I love it. These are the 7 words you say at the beginning of it. I'm going to teach you how to relax. What does that say about our society, that somebody has to start a tape by saying, I'm going to teach you how to relax?
Yeah, we are in a very stressful world right now. I would say stress is the #1 epidemic of our civilization. And directly or indirectly, it's linked to every other epidemic, whether it's cardiovascular illness, inflammatory disorders, autoimmune illnesses, decreased immunity and susceptibility to infections, many types of cancer. You can see the link, because your body goes into physiological havoc when you have stress.
This is something you think about. What do you think is the tipping point? Why are we where we are?
Because we've been bamboozled into thinking there's something out there that's going to make us happy. So for most people, there's a lot, that something out there is a house or a car or lots of money. We equate success with that. I think a deeper look at the meaning of success is necessary. Of course, success does include the progressive realization of worthy goals. It includes the ability to love and have compassion. It includes the ability to get in touch with your creative source. And then everything is a byproduct, including wealth and abundance. But you know, there are a lot of people in our society who are making money to make money, and then they make money to make money to make money. It's a, it's a neurosis.
You're a physician by education and training, but you had an epiphany at some point along the way, and you morphed into something else. Can you talk to us about how you've gotten to where you are today?
Okay, I'm still a physician. I maintain licenses in California and Massachusetts. We have a group practice in San Diego, and we do research. But what happened to me after my training in endocrinology and neuroendocrinology, so that's hormones of the brain and chemicals of the brain, is that I started, 2 things happened. One was, when I saw patients, I was puzzled by the fact that they didn't respond predictably. Now, any doctor will tell you, but they don't think about it. You have 2 patients who have the same illness, who see the same physician, and they get the same treatment, and they can have completely different outcomes. If a machine did that, if your car did that, you'd say it's not functioning right. But human beings do it all the time. So that was the first thing that puzzled me. The second thing was my own training, which was in chemistry, in brain chemistry. I could see the connection between emotions and feelings and thoughts and what went on in our consciousness or mind, if you will, and how it affected our biology. So when I was training, and this was new then, you know, nowadays everybody's heard words like dopamine and serotonin and endorphins. But when I was training, we were discovering these molecules. And I realized that these were the molecules of emotion. And I realized that these molecules just didn't stay in your head. They went everywhere in your body. And there was a communication going on between what was happening here and everywhere else. And because there were receptors to these molecules, even in the cells of the immune system. So your immune system is listening to your internal dialogue. Somebody there is having a conversation with themselves, and every cell in the body is thinking, listening. But here's even more interesting. Your gut and your heart and your immune cells make the same chemicals that the brain makes. So not only is the brain telling the body what's going on in the realm of thought, the immune cells are communicating back. Actually, if you look at the immune system, it's a circulating brain. And when people say, I have a gut feeling about such and such, they're speaking literally because the gut makes the same chemicals as the brain does. So this was what moved me into what has now burgeoned 30 years later into what we call mind-body medicine.
I want to touch on what you just talked about, but first, though, I want to go back those 30 years, because if nobody's talking about this and you start talking about it, now, there's an arc. We're 30 years later, Lady Gaga, Oprah, Michael Jackson, all these people embracing your thoughts, but initially, I would think the medical community is kind of siloed. There's a certain way of thinking. You probably fell into that certain way of thinking. Suddenly, you break out of that. There must have been some resistance along the way.
I was in Boston. I was in academic centers. I was teaching. I had a group practice. And I knew that if I continued saying the things I was saying, I would be fired. So I left. And I came to California. And I met a couple of other physicians who were sympathetic to me. And we started our own center.
Wow. And then the rest is history, as they say.
In a way.
So talk to me about these feelings that you were talking about and the impact that they have on us. I mean, everybody wrestles. I mean, the things you're talking about, I think, you know, it's common sense, you know, the stress, guilt, all these feelings you're talking about. But everybody wrestles with it. How do you get to the point where you...
Actually, the feelings are very important. But over the years, I've also learned a few other things. Okay, sleep is very important. Exercise and movement of sorts is very important. Mind-body practices such as stopping and breathing or keeping your body flexible through, say, yoga or something like that is also very important. And everything affects everything. So it's not that this or that, you know, your personal relationships are very important. And we've now done research that shows, and some of this comes from Gallup, where I'm a senior consultant now with Gallup, that your social well-being, your community well-being, your financial well-being, and your personal well-being, your career well-being are all linked. And in fact, the entire future of a society is linked to well-being as I've defined it. You can track GDP, traffic accidents, hospital admissions, crime rate linked to the well-being of a community. So we have to really see right now, if we really want to improve the condition of the world, you have to focus on your well-being, I have to focus on my well-being, and together we have to focus on the well-being of our families and communities. And that's the only way to improve the condition of the world.
Can you spot conflicts in advance then?
We can spot conflicts in advance, and we also know from the data that the best way to get rid of your enemy is to help improve the capacity of their well-being. You know, if we focused on that, should be our foreign policy. You know, if we think, oh, you know, these people are our enemies, let's go out and help them improve their well-being and their capacity for health and happiness. And we know what to do also.
What are things that you see out in society today that are producing the stress in all of us? And one of the things I point to, it's interesting because your son did this documentary where you're with your BlackBerry.
By the way, after the documentary, I stopped doing that.
The spiritual guru who grows restless without his followers.
You seem more contemplative than usual. Is it because you're not on the BlackBerry, not Twittering? What is it about this place?
I think the fact that I'm not on the BlackBerry, not Twittering, not on Facebook, not having to see emails, sometimes makes you realize how futile all that is anyway. If I have one flaw, it's impatience. And right now I have nothing to do.
The question is, do we own the devices or do they own us? Because it seems as though they own us in many respects.
Well, devices are neutral. It's what we do with them. You know, it's our choice ultimately, isn't it? Devices can be used for very diabolical ways too. Your handheld device, whether it's your phone or whatever, if you knew how to use it, you could do terrible things with it. You could interfere with pacemakers and respirators, cut off electricity, even send a signal to a nuclear plant to leak it. So we have to realize that devices, the future of technology is unstoppable. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to use these devices to measure heart rate, exercise? You know, we are now working with devices at our center that can measure your brain waves, your heart rate variability, instantly give you your stress levels and tell you to stop and breathe.
As many fans as there are, though, there are some that challenge your thoughts. I'm sure you've heard it. Were you surprised that people acted in this way to some of the things that you're saying?
Yes, I had lots of critics and lots of people who thought, oh, he's just a charlatan, you know. And I, in the beginning, was upset by that. But then, you know, I was so convinced about my work that I said, you know, if I'm going to listen to every critic, then I'm not going to get anywhere. Now, you know, 30 years later, there are critics, but it's not the same thing. I mean, I teach the continuing medical education course once a year at Beth Israel Hospital, Harvard Medical School. I have an appointment at UCSD Medical School. So, you know, I teach at Columbia Business School, Kellogg, etc. So, but there are critics, and there always will be.
Body, mind, and spirit impact every aspect and every part of our lives. Can you talk about that?
Well, we've seen the relationship between mind and body, but there's a deeper core consciousness where all this happens. That's, in spiritual traditions, called the soul. But I would say, if you're not spiritual, you can refer to them as the observer, process of observation, and that which is observed. So your body is something you observe. The world is something, it's the material world. The mental process is the process. How do you observe it? So we talked earlier about stress. You know, stress is not out there. Stress is not in you either. Stress is how you interpret what's happening to you. So I like to think of stress as the waves of an ocean. If you're not prepared and you're a skillful surfer, two different situations. You know, if you're a skillful surfer, every wave is exhilaration. And if you're not prepared, every wave is disaster. Now, where is all this action coming from? It's coming from deep within your core consciousness. If you could learn to turn to the observer, in fact, we can tell everyone who's watching us, as you're listening to us, just turn your attention to who's listening. There's a stillness there. And it's always there, and it's the deepest part of your being. And if you turn to that stillness, you never need to be stressed.
You do this thing with your voice, I'm ready to go. It's terrific. Your foundation raises money and goes after a lot of tough issues. As you look across the globe, what are the toughest things facing humanity?
The toughest things facing humanity are, first of all, extreme social injustice and economic disparities. 50% of the world still lives on less than $2 a day. 20% on less than $1 a day. So that in itself is the reason for conflict in the world. So I would say the toughest problems are conflict, war, terrorism, social and economic injustice, and most importantly now, a planet that's rapidly becoming unsustainable, climate change. And they're all linked again. They're all linked to our personal behaviors and our lack of responsibility, not only to take care of ourselves, but of other people. I think the only solution, if we have a solution, is to have a critical mass of people, a tipping point in the world where people say, I'm going to be the change I want to see in the world, like Mahatma Gandhi's favorite phrase. And it's almost become a cliche, but we need to act on that. We have to be the change that we want to see in the world. Otherwise, you just become an angry peace activist. We need creative solutions, and we know what they are. We know exactly what they are, and we know exactly how to execute those creative solutions.
What are the solutions? When you say we know what they are, what are the solutions?
Well, you start with well-being. You become a peaceful person yourself, okay? And every problem that you encounter, you ask yourself, what's the opportunity for a creative solution? You don't need to know it, but I do this regularly with other people as well. We always find a creative solution. So we have programs, as you said, in India, where we're able to collect money with other partners and send 1.5 million children to school every day. We work with inner city children in urban areas. We have a program called the Urban Yogis, and the crime rate is coming down drastically. I met the other day with the First Lady in New York, and we decided that we're going to commit ourselves to making New York a really peaceful community, and we're going to do it with these kids in the high crime areas.
How do you broaden that out, though, globally? I mean, you're talking about California,
by doing
you're talking
this
about
program, by talking about these solutions and creating this wave of awareness in the world that is happening. Social media and television, especially this kind of television, reaches the world. So, we're seeing the emergence of global communities thanks to social media and television, and it's only going to break boundaries. So national boundaries, ethnic boundaries, religious boundaries slowly are crumbling. I predict that in about 20 years, if we do it right, we won't have nation states, we'll have netocracies. So you will be a global citizen, my passport will say citizen of the globe, and you'll vote through the internet for big issues like climate change, genetically modified food, what's happening with the ecology, social policies. We'll do it together through information technology.
Well, we've run out of time, but thank you so much. It was great meeting
Thank
you
you.
and great chatting with you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.